Hell hath no fury like a grumpy ex-wife. Hey guys, I'm Rebecca and this is Davey. We run Divorce Hub and we are diving into a brand new series that we're pretty excited about because you all asked for it, divorce horror stories.
These are real situations. These are real cases of people that we come across in our practice, through Rebecca's real estate practice, through our ministry, through other different ways.
Attorney stories.
So we promise to use our story to help others, and sometimes we use other stories to help others too. We're going to deep dive into some of these real life scenarios and hopefully provide some guidance so that somebody can identify with this pain and hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls.
I get excited about this because as I was going through my own divorce, one of the best things was to sit down with somebody else who was going through the same craziness and not feel like I was alone. I am excited to share these stories because every single time I hear another story, I would go, oh my gosh, okay, my situation sucks, but that sucks too. And this sucks too. It feels good to know other people have survived something similar.
I think it's important to let people know we were going to take a subject and maybe mush in 3 different stories. What we decided on is that each individual story has takeaways. So we're going to say, hey, look, here's one situation that we know of. We're going to set the scene on each of these cases, these couples, these divorces that have gone through it. Or
Non-couples. Uncoupled couples.
There we go. We're going to set the scene for each buildup. We're going to go through some pitfalls, and then we're going to apply some of the principles that we have tried and tested over and over again with how to deal with this stuff and see if that yields any decent results.
Here we go.
Case number 1. Why did we choose this first case of this couple that's divorcing as episode number 1? What is the main takeaway that people are going to get as they hear this story?
Okay. The reason we're starting with this case, and one of the most important principles, is that your ex is not going to be different on the other side of a divorce unless your ex gets mental, emotional, spiritual help and does some self-deep diving. And one of the fears that I had in my marriage is, what if this person changes? And on the other side of it, there's all of this work that we did for a decade, and then all of a sudden, it's all better. And one of the things that my therapist told me from the very beginning very clearly is that only happens if the other person is willing to change. And sister, you're getting a divorce because that person doesn't want to change. They like who they are. So we're looking at this case study number 1 because unfortunately, one of the members of this marriage thought that if I just treat this person nice in a divorce and give in to a bunch of different things and don't put myself first and don't ask for what I want, that maybe even though this person was awful to be married to, they'll be nice over there. And guess what? People don't change unless they want to.
How is the couple today? Are they pre-divorce, during divorce, or post-divorce?
They are post-divorce, but headed back to court because ex-wife just finally decided she didn't like how things went and is now reopening against the ex-husband, stating that he's not following the divorce decree for tiny things like he maybe didn't call within the 10-minute window that he should have called the kids one night. Like little crazy things. And she's taking him back to court all the way. There's a court date.
So what you're saying is sometimes someone who's a bad person or a bad actor in a marriage, they don't get happy after the divorce papers are signed?
Shockingly, they do not.
Yes, I think anyone going through divorce is a good warning on that one, that this person, again, without significant help, is going to stay who they are, and don't expect some magic rainbow and a pot of gold of happiness at the end on divorce day. It's a very unfulfilling day to look back on. Okay, so how long was this couple together?
They got together in college, got married shortly after college, and then they were married for 11 years prior to this divorce.
And the big question everybody asks us, were there kids involved?
2 kids, both kids were still in elementary school.
And we know that well. Going through a divorce while kids are in preschool, one of the toughest for sure, obviously with custody and switch days and things like that. So married over 10 years, they've got a couple kids. Let's get into the juicy stuff, what everybody wants to know. Why'd it go wrong? What was the trigger? Was it alcohol, infidelity, abuse, etc.? What led to the end of this marriage?
No physical abuse. Alcohol really wasn't an issue. Infidelity was not an issue. What you had was some pretty severe depression, some pretty severe anxiety. One of the spouses was just unable to function. After a decade of it, you get done having kids and you just start to go, hey, we got to get help. And the spouse that asked for help and asked for help and asked for help, one day stopped asking for help and was like, I want a divorce. And so it was really like a matter of complete incompatibility. The life that one spouse chose to live of misery and depression and anxiety and self-hatred didn't match the other person's life they wanted to live.
So as you're talking, there's things that are coming up that I want to make sure we address. I think people at home would be like, hey, Rebecca, at one point you said one of the members of this marriage wasn't able to function. Like, what do you mean by that? Do you mean like they were physically unable, or they were emotionally unable, they weren't getting out of bed, they had a physical ailment? What does that mean?
The stories that we heard from this couple were that the wife was really struggling with anxiety and depression post-kids. Her youngest went to school, and while she was working full-time, she was on the couch. This couple, when they met in college, they met in the gym over weightlifting and physical activity, and that was important to both of them. I remember sitting with the husband at one point, and he was like, she's the strongest woman I ever met. I was so attracted to this version of her, and she just lost herself. Not only did she physically let herself go by gaining 100 pounds, he's like, my social partner and the woman that I loved just gave up on life, and she wouldn't get help and was grumpy and mean and hated herself, and certainly not an example that he wanted to have for his kids. I remember one story, they were trying to cook dinner, and him and the boys, he had a couple little boys, were like, hey, we're gonna get dinner going, we're gonna go to the grocery store. Mom's in bed. Mom's asleep at 6 o'clock. She hates life so much she doesn't even want to participate. And he was like, that was it for me.
Okay, so really, I think I want a little empathy as well. Yeah. We don't know what really led her to that moment. It was some postpartum, social changes, job changes. We don't know. However, when you are in a marriage and one person shuts down, that has an effect. What we know about those situations is if the receiving partner on that lack of function, they tend to build resentment. Now, you said something else that a lot of people don't do. What it sounds like the husband tried to do is he was asking for help.
He said he was actively asking for help.
Did he share what ways he was asking for help and how he was communicating that?
He said he would try things like getting her to go on girls' nights, getting her to find some friends at work, encouraging her to find a group workout class, even just addressing the elephant in the room of, hey, babe, all you do after work is look at your phone. And I'm not meaning like for an hour, like you come home and that's all you do. He said he tried for years, like thinking, oh, it was just the baby. And when the kids go back to school and whatever else, and she just had no desire to function other than how she was functioning.
Okay, so she's shutting down. He's building resentment. This has got all the telltale markings for infidelity, a gambling problem, an addiction, depression on his own. Which one of these did he pick?
In my experience of talking with this person in depth for hours, he picked resentment. And the exit was totally just resenting the person. There wasn't an affair. There wasn't another woman. He didn't develop an alcohol issue. He did go back to school and chose to focus on, okay, if I can't fix my marriage, maybe I'll learn a new trade. So he spent some time going back to school. And I think shortly after he got done with that, he was ready to start his new career. He was like, hey, this person that's supposed to be my partner isn't my partner. It's not what I want the next phase of my life to look like. And he did something that you and I both really respected him for. He made that decision before he made a bad decision with an affair or with alcoholism or something else that would have been an exit. He had the wherewithal to be like, hey, I don't want it.
Resetting the scene. Okay. They've got 2 kids. They're married. She's crumbling. He's resenting like crazy. What happens next? Do they try the in-house separation? We're talking about a couple now that's divorced. Was it the first person who said the D word? Did somebody move out? Did somebody file paperwork? Where's the divorce start?
Where the divorce started in this situation is ask for help, ask for help, ask for help. Somebody mentioned divorce. And I don't know who mentioned it first. I know that the wife ended up filing first, and I know that the husband moved out. He moved in with his kids. Another part of this story that really factored into why they stayed together so long is that together they were earning about $150,000, which in where we live, you can live off of that. But if you take his 75 and her 75, you can't really provide for 2 kids off of that, especially the lifestyle that they were used to living. So there were a lot of things that would have had to change with their specific lives that they just couldn't really process. So they put up with where they were at because he was going through school. I don't even have the degree that I need to be able to provide for my family, and they just survived.
So in that situation, they were just in a loveless marriage for a while. They knew it. they were financially trapped or they thought they were trapped. There's obviously relationship pressure and financial pressure.
Now, he did say that really pretty quickly after he started going back to school and having some new friend groups, that she was just sure that he was having an affair. She'd gained like 100 pounds. He's still this fit, fun doctor. She'd had 2 kids. She's at home depressed. We know this guy. This dude's not a cheater. He did not cheat on this woman. He loved her and he really, truly tried, but she was just sure there was somebody else. And so she's constantly berating him through their marriage, going through his phone, asking who he's talking to. And he's like, how about you just get some help? I love you. I'm here. And eventually he stopped asking for help.
All right, setting that scene, the who, we know that. We got some kids. Was there a career or an economic disparity between the two? Was one a more significant earner than the other?
There was. The wife made about twice as much as the husband did. So once they got married, she started her progression in her career. He went back to school. So even though he got the education that he needed, she was up here and he's cruising along down here. In most marriages, that causes a husband to need to pay child support or some type of maintenance. What we've seen over and over again is when the wife makes more, very rarely does the husband ask for that as a point of pride. Yeah. And so it was definitely an issue in this man's decision about, I'm going to separate and leave my wife. We'll talk about some of the stuff that he chose to give her down the road. It was an issue in the marriage.
I think something to put a pin on for men or women on either side, there is always going to be an economic disparity.
Always.
These child support payments are designed to do one thing, which is equalize the experience of the children in both homes. And that takes a lot for a man earning less money than his ex-wife to ask that question. And I think that's important to note for men and for women, regardless of which side you're on. That is just a reality, and what we see a lot is, and what you'll see, I think, in this case too, is this was a man who gave up the farm and is getting pulled back into court. And that's what's so tough. The D word gets mentioned. He moves in with his family. They start a 50-50 custody. And
they do, in a 2-2-5 arrangement. Okay. I think that's important to note. This couple immediately went to 2-2-5, which can be really scary in the beginning when you start going from seeing your kids every day to having to go 5 days without seeing them. In a lot of cases, 5 days without even talking to them because we're so mad at each other. I don't want your name popping up on my phone. That can be a tough thing, but that's what they did.
So they get into this 2-2-5. We believe at this point, even post-divorce, there's nothing threatening that 50-50 arrangement. There's certainly some disputes about vacation time and things like that, which, by the way, I think it's important to mention, that's where these things go off the rails. We've had episodes on that. We've talked to people on that. We field calls all the time. Where this goes wrong is in the nuances of the 50-50. Unless there's significant abuse or neglect, the kids are going to spend 50-50 at each house, right? And the courts
usually
just defer to that. So they've got the 50-50 arrangement, and they're charging forward towards trial. And I think the important thing to ask now is, what are the big things as they go through resentment and now accusations of infidelity, and they've moved out and they're on custody arrangement temporarily before the divorce decree is signed? How's it going during the divorce?
Oh, it's a disaster. It's a complete disaster. And what the hardest part about divorce with children is you are still seeing this person all the time. You're seeing them at school performances. You're seeing them at pick up and drop off. These adults were seeing each other, and the ex-wife is getting madder and madder because the husband is like, hey, I'm going to live my life. I'm going to get a girlfriend. I'm going to move on with my life. I'm going to be successful in my career and keep working out. And the resentment that wife had didn't go away. Now, what we saw go wrong in this is that the husband still fell back into the old patterns of, maybe if I show up in this way, or if I'm nice in this way, or if I give in this way, then my resentful wife, she'll let go of some of it. That was what he thought incorrectly.
So what are some things that we know that he did wrong, and we're going to come back to her too, and we know she did wrong, and then we're going to apply some of our principles that we know. So give me some quick hitters on what he did wrong during the divorce or what he agreed to.
All right. Number one, whenever he moved out, he didn't take everything he wanted with him. So he got locked out of the house, and she held hostage a lot of his stuff.
So a hasty exit.
A hasty exit. He was not well planned. He was just like, get me the heck out of here. One of our principles is safety. If physical, emotional, mental safety is a problem, do you really care about that computer on that couch you liked? I don't know.
Do we believe he moved out hastily as his first sign to try to apologize?
I think that he moved out hastily trying to be like, I'll make this as easy as possible. I don't want to disturb her. I don't want to disturb the kids. I'll just leave all my stuff.
And while that sounds nice on face value, how'd that go for him?
Awful. He never got the stuff that
He never got his stuff back. He gave up more than he should in the divorce, and he's getting pulled back into court. A lot of people think about is, okay, where we're going to live. They settled that. We got the kids handled. That's number 2. We settled that. What about division of marital property? Was that equal?
Not at all. He had a new truck that he liked with a truck payment. She had a nice car that was totally paid off. He let her keep the car. I'm not going to make her have a car payment. I'll let her keep it. He kept his truck and the truck payment. So that was an unequal value of asset.
What would a court have done had they fought through that? Or there would have been, if it was just those items, division of marital assets, there's no fault in this state.
They would have sold both cars. Or potentially, if her car was paid off, they would have said, sell her car. You each take $25,000 from the sale of the car. And if you want to keep your truck that has a brand new loan on it, I guess you can, but that's your debt. She could have gone out and bought a new car and acquired her own debt.
Can I just say that this person hates you now?
Hates you more now than they ever did when you were married.
So no gesture of goodwill or truck or house or 401k or special painting or children's hat or memory or picture is gonna make them feel better. So if you try to do that, you're gonna get taken to the cleaners, right?
I haven't seen a case where somebody gave up the kitchen sink and the other person was like, thank you for that couch. That makes the end of my marriage worth it. And I'm going to treat you so nicely from now on. What a great gesture. There's so many other emotions involved here that physical assets are never going to fix it. It's not going to fix the loss of a marriage.
I think even if you have some incredibly materialistic person on one side, that's only going to fix it temporarily. It's not true healing. Look, we understand empathetically that these people on the other side that are receiving, they think that's going to fix their problems. Okay, so hasty exit, don't do that. Make sure it's safe. Get what you want. Number 2, don't give away the farm.
Literally gave away the farm, so she got to keep her paid off car. She also got to keep the house, which she was able to refinance and keep their interest rate. To me, that was a huge faux pas. And as a real estate professional, I just have to say, he didn't get the house appraised. He didn't even check to see if he had the ability to buy the house. He ended up in a rental. Potentially that family home could have been his only shot at purchasing or refinancing a home because he was already on the title for another 5 years. Instead, he gave it to the higher earner in the house completely. He would even tell you this, completely out of an idea that maybe she would be nicer if she got to stay in the home.
I think it's important for people to understand people come up with arrangements or settlements that they think are fair, but they're not infusing the law. They're infusing their emotion. Some of these situations, you've got lower income earners in marriages who they need that house to be sold so that they can find somewhere to live. They don't have a job. They don't have a career. They're earning less. And they give away the farm just because they're saying sorry. And I think that is so terrible. You're going to unequalize the experience, especially if there's children in both houses. Okay. That wasn't the only one. The third gem that we know about this is ex-wife got a very troublesome element put into the parenting plan about new girlfriends. What got snuck in?
In general, my opinion on significant others, on meeting the children, on all of the emotional things that happen when you get divorced and your partner moves on is a divorce decree is a legal document and it doesn't belong there. And I had a different opinion on this when I started my divorce prior to experiencing, you and I both had to experience really early on from all different angles, what it feels like to have your ex-spouse introducing people to your kids and you want to control it. Everybody thinks they have what's best in mind for the kids when they do it. Unfortunately, it is truly an element of control where I want to control his life. He wants to control my life. You cannot control the romantic dealings of your ex. And it doesn't belong in a divorce decree.
We see it so much. I'm thinking of a case where ex-wife doesn't want the new girlfriend around. Ex-husband doesn't want the new boyfriend around. Look, unless there's a physical safety question for the kid with the new person, these divorce decrees and parenting plans only serve as landmines, which are just something you can decide to sue over. We see some of these people that revert back to your divorce decree as a way to communicate with your co-parent about your children is such the lowest common denominator. It is the bare minimum standard of parenting. And that is not enough for your kids that are going through divorce. So they got in this situation, sounds like he agreed to a no, introduce new humans into the child's life for how long?
12 months.
12 months.
Yeah.
Wow.
A whole year that both ex-husband and ex-wife agreed that they wouldn't introduce new romantic partners. Now, they both agreed to it. And to our knowledge, they both kept it up. And what they both felt on the other end of it was that was pretty stupid because a year is so long. And what you ended up with is kids that know mommy has a new boyfriend and he makes her really happy and he's in her life when we're not in her life. And there's pictures of him on her phone, but we're not allowed to meet him. And it just creates problems that then the ex is the only one controlling it. Let me give you a scenario. Let's say you and I are dating. I have signed something that says I'm not introducing you to my kids as my boyfriend, but what if I introduce you to my kids because we happen to run into each other at the park? Can my ex really control that? Not really. So what you have to think about in these divorce decrees, is this something you want to take your ex back to court over? It just gets really muddy and messy and allows one partner to feel that they have control over another partner, which from what we've seen doesn't ever bode well.
It's tough for the kids. It's tough for the new relationships. You signing away your ability to date someone or potentially bring them into your children's life should absolutely be well researched by your legal counsel and your therapist, right? You at some point after divorce have to take the responsibility on yourself as a parent to say, you know what? I'm in a loving, monogamous, or committed, supportive relationship with this new person, and it's 90 days in. Hey, kids, here's my new girlfriend. And like you said, you're seeing them thrive. And we may get flack for that. That's a hill I'm happy to die on with anybody. Notwithstanding true safety concerns of a new partner, that obviously fits in a bucket that we're not supporting. We're talking about healthy relationships when that healthy new person comes into your life.
And what we tell parents all the time, too, is you're going to know what's right. If you're a 45-year-old couple, both mom and dad are 45, and dad gets a new 23-year-old girlfriend, you might want to wait a hot second before we introduce new girlfriend to your kids. You just have to think about how things like that will affect your kids. Our kids already knew each other. We knew each other from school. There was communication. They're like, oh, that's David's dad. It was a more natural introduction.
So the 3 takeaways again: a hasty exit, gave away the farm financially, made some mistakes in the parenting plan, all the way through the divorce, gets through the divorce. Things are not better. He is getting pulled back into court. Do we know what he's getting pulled back in for?
A violation of the parenting plan.
So she's really out just for more money, because at this point we're talking about a civil penalty, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And if I remember right as well, he also got a new job after divorce, and she wants to look at the finances again, which interestingly enough, we know that he still makes less than she does. I have a lot of empathy for the woman on the other side of this who's hurting so badly that she thinks the only remedy for her pain is to go back to court. And that's just not the answer.
Let's start applying some of our principles here. We talk about safety. We talk about empathy. We talk about not doing this thing alone. And we talk about creating community, and we talk about self-love. So from a safety standpoint, what did they get right? Did they get wrong when it comes to establishing some safety physically, emotionally, and through communication? Did they get that right?
Physically, it sounds like they did create space pretty quickly and they weren't cohabitating, which is smart. That's good. I haven't heard of very many cases where cohabitating lasts and is healthy and safe long term.
What about the emotional safety of the couple as they were going through divorce and now afterwards?
This is a very unsafe emotional situation. There were name calling and threats and lies, and it was a very unsafe situation.
And what is a way that people subject themselves to emotional or physical unsafety?
The physical unsafety, and I was guilty of this. We're both guilty of this. Really early on in your divorce, you think that it's a good idea to go get ice cream or lunch or dinner with your ex and the kids. The whole family unit's going to go out for dinner.
Fake it till we, please don't ever do that again.
Please don't ever, ever, ever do that.
That's so traumatic for the children to go and play fake family while the tension of the couple is seething. The kids are looking at a couple that has now started living apart, and then they get a little nugget and a little hope in their heart that
we had ice cream sundaes. Maybe mommy and daddy will get back together. They got along. They were getting along.
maybe it worked the other 15 times when we would separate and do this, but wow, what a mess. So they did establish a physical safety, emotional safety. We know that in this case, the communication safety was F plus, right? One of the things that we saw is the floodgates, the channels were wide open.
There was texting, calling, emailing, texting family members. It was a disaster.
This is a spot we get called on quite a bit. Our friends, family, people in our ministry that say, hey, help me craft this email. Help me craft this text. What do you think about that? And what we find so many times is that all of these additional attempts and text message wars and email battles sitting in your drafts and long soliloquies about why things are the way they are, they've got about a 99% fail rate. And so one of the things you got to do from a communication safety standpoint, get in a parenting app.
Parenting app.
Talk through lawyers, especially in a high conflict situation. So they did that wrong.
They did that totally incorrectly.
Okay. What about the empathy index, the empathy test here? One of our driving principles in our life and in this divorce process is even when someone is being an absolute psycho, that instead of just calling them a psycho, we at least empathetically understand why that person is doing it. For example, there's a man lashing out against new boyfriend. We empathetically understand that's a scared little boy that's lashing out. So who had the empathy here? Did they do it right?
It's really hard once resentment has built up so long for some people to ever come back and see the empathy on the other side. They have to believe whatever story they've told themselves. And unfortunately, I think the wife in this situation told herself whatever story about herself, about her husband, and she had no empathy for him at all. No empathy for giving the car away, no empathy for giving the house away, no empathy for how it might have felt to drive 30 minutes to his parents' house every time to pick the kids up. There was no understanding, and really the kids suffered in the end. I think on the other side, he had too much empathy. I watched him melt and be weak in a lot of ways that it was like, oh my gosh, get a backbone, dude. Please get a backbone. And so I think having too much empathy sometimes, especially when in a marriage you're the one who feels like you've carried it and maybe nurtured along a weaker spouse, it'd be really hard to let that go and let that person fail.
So both failed an empathy test there in terms of understanding and making good decisions. But again, empathy does not excuse someone from acting poorly. It at least takes away the confusion as to why they're doing it. The last principles that we coach people all the time and encourage them to go through, the third one, which is don't do this alone. Create a community, find a community, join a community. Say more about that. Did they do that right here? Did they not do that right?
I don't think that they did that right here. Either party didn't do that. As a matter of fact, they were going to try to self-represent through their legal filings for a lot of it and didn't even have the community of an educated attorney to help navigate some of these things. No, this specific couple really, like I said in the beginning, one of the problems in their marriage was that they didn't have anyone. And then when it came time to divorce, even the no one that they had got split in half.
Do we know for a fact that they did couples counseling before they broke up?
No.
After they separated, did they engage in co-parent counseling for the best interest of the kids?
I believe there was a session with a co-parenting counselor and the children are in active therapy.
That's great. And then what kinds of things are these individuals doing to try to be a part of new communities and nutrients? Do we know that's happening at a really good level?
I do know that the husband has a gym community that he's a part of. He's going out with people. He's got a new girlfriend. Seems like he has a community and is working through a lot of that. I don't think that she is. She, unfortunately, like the therapist said in the beginning, people don't change unless they want to change. And she seems pretty miserable still.
So this 4-step process: establish safety, physical and emotional, clean up the communication, drive heavy amounts of empathy, find a community as you rebuild. And the last one, which I think is most important to bring home last, which probably could have staved off a lot of the resentment that was built in the marriage, is selflessness and not ever prioritizing yourself in terms of self-love. Do we see that happening with this case now? Do we know the individual that we know to be engaged in some good self-love now?
I think I'd give it a solid B+.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good changes happening for the individual that we know, and the wife, it doesn't seem like there's that much going on over there.
And self-love has to happen at the same time your therapy appointments and your co-parenting counselor. You can't wait until the divorce is done to start taking care of yourself. The divorce process has an absolute neurological degradation on your system, much less the stress and anxiety, the lack of sleep. And if you don't get on that horse right away and start eating right and moving and hydrating and praying and going to therapy, this truck is going to run over you. And it did. And he tried his best to apologize with money and with assets, and it didn't work, and it got him the new trip back into court. This is, again, one of those times. We certainly use our story to help others, and I think sometimes we use other stories to help others. This story was not good. And if you pick anything up from that and you're going through divorce or even just in your relationship, look at the degradation that happened when someone shut down and they built resentment and the whole thing just fell apart.
I think at the end of the day, especially if you're someone who views themselves as a nice person, a kind person, a giver, a servant, this is one of those times that you need to get yourself in some therapy, because divorce is hardest for you. Divorce is sometimes easy for a selfish person, right? Because now they just get to choose themselves, and you'll see them bebopping around on the other side of divorce. Hey, I got all my freedom. But for the person who is a servant and who loves relentlessly and loves selflessly, you might fall trapped to the same thing that this man did, of giving away things that then you're already giving away a decade of your life to a marriage that hopefully you learn some lessons from. But at the end of the day, I hope that those selfless people respect themselves and love themselves enough to set themselves up for a better life on the other side. And that doesn't mean giving away the farm.
Hope this helps.